is understanding the rules of the game. And I'm going to say something I know sounds a little bit weird, but before we start negotiating with a counterpart, we need to negotiate on how to negotiate. Often I work with people, especially in economics, where I try and tell them that trust is a monetary value, and they say, no, 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 it's not. It's an emotion. That's nothing new, but we're more tribal than ever before. So that means that, David, if you and I agree on something, we have a tendency today, partly because of algorithms, to not even want to discuss that disagreement with somebody who disagree with us. We have a tendency, you and I, just to be tribal and thinking, what an idiot, because he or she doesn't see the world as we see it. So we're not even interested in having a dialogue with somebody else. That's a tribal effect.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Today is February 5th. My name is David Schraga, and it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome everyone here to this week's installment of the New Possibilities Hour, part of the Will Work for Food project, started about 5 years ago by Natalie Armstrong Matan as a way for arbitrators, mediators, litigators, and really anyone who negotiates to come together and build community during the pandemic. As many of you know, rather than charge a fee for these fantastic seminars, we invite you to make a donation to a local food bank if you're so inclined and so able to help us fight hunger. These programs really have just been a tremendous resource to our community, but they've also really demonstrated the generosity of our fantastic audience as well. And one of our favorite parts of the program on a weekly basis is when we let you know how much has been donated so far by our audiences. So Natalie, will you please let us know where things stand as of today?
David, I'm happy to. We have been told now about $932,817.96 donated. And during the month of January, folks have reported that they donated 93 hours of time at their local food bank in efforts.
It's fantastic. I mean, as you know, there's a tremendous multiplier effect. Every dollar translates into multiple meals for families that are in need around the world. So thank you so much to our wonderful audience for donating their money and their time. We really have a fantastic program again for you this week. The title of today's program is What If We've Been Negotiating the Wrong Way Since 1776? And it's brought to us by Dr. Keld Jensen. I am really excited about this one today, folks. Professor Jensen is a widely acclaimed author and expert on negotiation who has penned 27 books that have been published in 38 countries. He is the creator of the Smartnership Negotiation Framework, which I'm sure he'll talk more about today. He holds the position of an associate professor at 4 universities. That's Aalborg University, the BMI Executive Institute, the Louvain University, as well as the Thunderbird School of Global Management. He has also received several international honors, including the Thought Leader in Trust by Trust Across America, Business New Negotiation Strategy by the Organization of Public Procurement Officers, and the Innovation Award for the International Association of Commerce and Contracting Procurement Awards. The list of credentials goes on. He's the former CEO of a public technology company. He's got a doctorate focused on negotiation, artificial intelligence, and trust. He judges international negotiation competitions. And it's no doubt, of course, that his expertise is sought by major private and governmental institutions worldwide. In addition, he has graced the stage as a TEDx speaker, captivating audiences worldwide with his insights as well. I'm pleased to sort of share today, for those of you who might not be following him yet on LinkedIn, as of today, he posted that he is ranked #2 in the world on the rankings for global gurus in negotiation, moving up from #3 last year, with #1 squarely in his sights. So obviously we've got a fantastic speaker today. And I just would say one more thing, which is that Dr. Jensen has a really fantastic mission statement on his site where he sort of speaks to what drives him. And notwithstanding his impressive credentials, he says titles and trophies are not important. What drives me is helping people and organizations achieve more together, not at the expense of others, but with them. And I think as mediators on this call, especially, that will really resonate with a lot of us. So with that, Dr. Jensen, I would ask you to maybe tell us a little bit about the organization that you're designating today for local food bank donations, and then you have the floor.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure being here today. And I think your course is so great. So I was happy when I got invited. The organization I picked is Food for the Poor simply because I have a neighbor that's involved and I've seen a little bit what they're doing and I think they're doing great work. So that's the organization I'm aiming at today. Anyway, David, you mentioned several times we're going to talk about negotiation. And actually, I'm sorry, because we're not. We're going to talk about something else. It's actually something I discovered in 1998 that I believe is important for a lot of people, and that is success in life. And now I can see a lot of the audience we have today. So I have a quick question for all of you, those of you who got the camera on. Those of you who feel currently you are successful in life, could you raise your hand, those of you who feel you are successful in life? Oh, great. That's perfect. It's always better for me working with a group of audience that feel they are successful because there's a more positive vibe, you know. Now, I know some of you might be sitting there thinking, what is he talking about when he's talking about successes in life? Is that how well I'm doing in my career, how much money I make, how well I raise my kid, how good I am at playing tennis or whatever? Well, it's all of the above because obviously I don't have the recipe what is success for you in your life because we can probably agree that success for David might be different than success for Michael, and success for Michael might be different than success for Shannon, right? Because obviously success in life could be very individual. Now, however, I am going to talk about success in life because in 1998 I discovered that the science of collaborating with other people is one of the key skills to become successful in life. So that's really what we're going to talk about. If I've discovered that something else in 1998 was important for you to become more successful, that would have been the topic today. So yes, we are going to talk about negotiation, but not in the typical form. And I guess that we only have an hour, and usually this is something I can spend days on, but I'm pretty sure that some of you might be slightly surprised about my angle and approach into negotiation. Let me, while I'm just sharing my screen here, let me ask you another question. How many of you would like to be more successful in life? Could you just wave again if any of you feel that? Well, again, I can only say you're at the right time at the right place because that is absolutely the purpose why we're here, okay? I also want to share with you guys that please put questions or comments in the chat. I'm very, very happy to answer anything, any questions that you may have. So please just show the hand or make a remark and put the question in the chat. And at the very end, I hope we do have time for Q&A as well. Anyway, hopefully you can see my slide right now. And I have copied the famous Dale Carnegie and his quote, "Success is getting what you want." And I've been using this quote for many years. I've tried to come up with something better myself, but I haven't been able to. And I just love his quote because that is really the case, isn't it? When you get what you want, you can consider yourself successful. And then he added, happiness is wanting what you get. And I kind of love that too, because if you get something you don't want, you may end up not being happy. And I think the pursuit of happiness is probably one of the reasons we're here on earth, isn't it? Anyway, I was just thinking, preparing this session here today, David, that, you know, the science of negotiation is it's sometimes a little bit boring. So why not talk about something else that I know will engage and interest the majority of people we have on board today, and that is money, sex, and power.
Those are, Keld, let me interrupt. Those are of interest. Just to know, you're not doing a full screen share, so I don't know if you wanted to show the full slides or if you wanted to do a split screen.
Hang on. No, I'm actually doing a split screen now, but I hope everybody can see
Right.
this slide, David. I hope that's possible.
Yeah, they're visible. I just wanted to make sure.
That's good. Okay, no, I picked that on purpose. Anyway, what I've been claiming for many years is that in order to be perceived successful in life, you need all three. You need money, sex, and power. If you got those three, you can see yourself as being successful. Now, I do a bunch of keynotes every year around the world, and a couple of years ago, my British partner came to me and said, "You know what, Keld? I strongly disagree with you." And I said, "Oh, really? I'm very curious. Why?" And he said, "Well, I disagree with you because you claim in order to be perceived successful in life, you need money, sex, and power, all three." I disagree with you, he said. And listen carefully, ladies and gentlemen, because I do think my British partner is right. Because he said, "I disagree with you claiming that you need all three. I think you only need one of them. And if you have sufficient amount of one of them, you're going to get the other two automatically." Think about that for a second, ladies and gentlemen. I think Steve is right, isn't he? Because haven't history shown us that if we have an enormous amount of money, that can be converted into power and sex? I think that's the case, isn't it? At the same time, if we have an enormous amount of power, we can also translate that into money and sex. And if we are very attractive and pursued by other people, the middle part, well, I have seen people who are able to convert that into power and money as well. So, guys, we just need to focus on one of them. And if we are successful in that one, the other two will come automatically. Now, some of you might be sitting right now thinking, where the heck is this webinar going? Well, we are talking about negotiation because let me share a secret with you guys. You're not getting either of the ones on the screen right now if you're not capable of negotiating. I have been sitting in hundreds of thousands of meetings on behalf of clients, and I've never seen the counterpart looked at my client and said, you know what? We don't think you make enough money. We're going to give you another $100,000. That has never happened. People are always fighting, combating, or doing whatever they can to get the majority of the pie when we talk about money. At the same time, I've never seen anybody just giving up power. I've never seen anybody in a negotiation saying, you know what, David, you should be in charge of everything. I don't want to decide anything. Just tell me what you want, and that's what we're going to do. That is rarely happening as well. And then there's the middle part, the sixth part. And some of you might be thinking, has that got anything to do with negotiation? Well, for some people, it does. I meet some people, perhaps more men than women, that says, well, every Wednesday and Sunday, I have to negotiate to be successful in that one. So yes, there's certainly negotiation involved in all three of them. Now, let me just challenge all of you right here from the morning. What I'm claiming is that hundreds of thousands of negotiations are being wasted every single day. And as we are spending this hour together right now, I claim that hundreds, if not thousands of negotiations are being wasted right now. And what do I mean by a wasted negotiation? Let me explain that very quickly. We've done a study of 35,000 negotiations since 1998. So we have a lot of data that we base our research on. And what we have discovered is that 34, about 1/3 of all negotiations where both parties would have benefited from reaching an agreement is not reaching an agreement. The two parties leave each other thinking that was impossible to reach an agreement. But in reality, it is possible, and it would have been beneficial for both of them to reach an agreement. Now, I'm not talking about negotiations where it is impossible to reach an agreement, or it would have been worse to reach an agreement than not reaching an agreement, because obviously you can be successful in a negotiation by not reaching an agreement. So I'm simply talking about negotiation where it would have been better for both parties to reach an agreement. And we know from this study that 1/3 of all negotiations that fails where the parties do not reach an agreement, it would have been better for both of them to do that. So obviously that's a wasted negotiation. But listen carefully, we have something that I find is even more important in identifying what we call a wasted negotiation. And this is a concept that we call negotiation economics. The short version of that is nego-economics. And this is something that I talk about in my books as well. It's a very simple award-winning mathematical model that proves that up to 42%, I repeat, 42% in commercial negotiations are being lost. Imagine you're sitting in a negotiation in the conference room. You've been sitting there for hours or days or weeks. Finally, you agree, you sign the contract, you shake hands, and you leave. Very happy and satisfied with your work. But what you don't know, and when you don't realize, is that there's up to 42% of the value that hasn't been capitalized, identified, or utilized by either party in that negotiation. I am willing to give you a promise, ladies and gentlemen, that is, I can guarantee there's an unutilized nego-economics in every single commercial negotiation. That's a guarantee. I can't guarantee it's 42% because in some negotiation it might be 4%, in some negotiation it might be 16, in some negotiations it might be 22. It varies from negotiation to negotiation, from industry to industry, but I can promise you there is an unutilized amount of value not being capitalized by the parties. It's not magic, so I'm going to explain in this hour where that amount is coming from and how we utilize that. Another reasons why we see a lot of negotiations being unsuccessful is because we basically negotiate the same way as we've done since 1776. And remember that year, there's a specific reason why I talk about 1776. And a lot of commercial negotiations in 2026 are being conducted like the picture you can see on the screen right now. You have the soldiers in the trenches, they point their rifles towards each other. This is what we know as a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game, as you're all familiar with, means that I win $100 at the expense of the counterpart, or the counterpart wins $100 at my expense. So my success is happening at your expense, or your success is happening at my expense. That's not a great way to conduct negotiation. The basic like warfare. If you look at Russia and Ukraine right now, that's a zero-sum game, isn't it? Like every war. Some people claim that there might be a winner and a loser in a war, but I doubt that, because just think about the sacrifices, the cost, the life being wasted in any warfare. It's basically a lose-lose situation for both parties involved in a war. And quite often, commercial negotiation is the same. There might be one party leaving this negotiation thinking, yeah, I was the winner, but in reality, they lost as well. They just don't see it. So, quick question to all of you. Has any of you, by accident, been reading the book, The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith? This book was written in 1776. Here we go. That's the year I mentioned just 2 minutes ago. And it's a book that is perceived very, very important. It's actually called the Bible of the Capitalistic System. Now, Adam Smith was a Scottish philosopher that was walking around in the Scottish Highland in 1776, and he was thinking, how should nations trade with each other? How should company conduct business with each other? So he wrote The Wealth of Nations, the first book that actually described how we should do business with each other. Now, as I said, this book is still being used at institutions and colleges and universities around the world today. And if you're studying economics at a high level, you are still required to read The Wealth of Nations from 1776. There are two problems with this book. And the first one is kind of obvious. It is really boring. I mean, it's a very thick book. There's no graphics, there's no entertainment, there's nothing in it. It's just a bunch of words and a lot of text. That's the first problem. But the other problem that is way worse than the first problem is the book is completely wrong in its conclusion. And obviously that's brave of me to say this in 2026. And thank God there are people way brighter than me that have been saying that before me. And one of them is the very famous American professor, Dr. Nash. I'm sure some of you have watched the movie A Beautiful Mind, because Hollywood actually found that Dr. Nash was so interesting, so they wanted to do a movie about him. And Russell Crowe was playing the role of Nash. Now, Dr. Nash was a genius, without any doubt. But he was one of those geniuses that is so bright, the IQ is so high, so they're slightly crazy at the same time. No doubt that Dr. Nash was on that scale. Now, Dr. Nash won the Nobel Prize in economics, and he's actually the creator of game theory, which is a very important part of studying negotiation. And my approach to creating economics is actually based on his foundation and thinking in mathematics. Anyway, Nash, all the way back in the 60s, were criticizing Adam Smith's book. And because Adam Smith in the book is saying the best result will come from everyone in the group doing what is best for themselves. Capitalism is preaching pure egocentric behavior. And I don't think that Dr. Nash was a socialist or communist. He was just looking at it from a purely mathematical point of view. And he said that is absolutely wrong. Because from a mathematical point of view, the best result will come from everyone in the group doing what is good for himself and the group at the same time. That is the only way we all win. Now, from a mathematical point of view, that is absolutely correct. The pure egocentric behavior, extreme capitalism in negotiation, is not making the best financial outcome for neither one side or the other side. One side may believe they won, but actually they lost value as well by pursuing this approach into negotiation. Now, could I ask you to be honest for a second, guys? How many of you want to be honest here? We are only about 40, 45, 50 people here, so it's a small group. How many of you would admit that you sometime eat fast food? Could you raise your hand, those of you who want to admit that? There's a few. I have to raise my hand as well, and accidentally sometimes I stumble into a fast food restaurant if I'm really hungry and is looking for something less healthy. Anyway, imagine, David, that you are going into your favorite burger spot. And you order a burger and you go and sit because you want to dine at the location. And you get your burger and you open the package. And the burger looks like this one on the slide right now. Some stranger in the kitchen took a big bite off your burger. Now, David, quick question to you. How do you think you're going to react? Are you going to say, well, I think that's fair. I mean, there was somebody in the kitchen that was hungry. So I'm happy to share with an absolute stranger. Or are you going to think this is disgusting, going up to the counter, complain, want a refund, and perhaps even a compensation? And on top of that, you may never want to eat at that diner again. I think it's the last one, right? You're not going to accept that a complete stranger you don't know is just taking a big bite of your burger. So my provoking question to all of you is, how come we would never accept a complete stranger is taking a bite of your food? But in every single commercial negotiation we're involved in, we allow that somebody's taking a bite of the financial pie. And perhaps we don't know it, perhaps we don't understand where it's coming from, perhaps we are unconsciously incompetent, but we are still accepting that a huge bite, a potential value of this deal is just being lost between the two parties. Now, let me just illustrate for a second what it is we're talking about. Back to our study of 35,000 negotiations globally. What we found in our study is that, look at these two people, they are in a negotiation, and the value of this negotiation could be, let's just say, $100 million. What they're negotiating about is not important at all. What we found is that in the cases where the two party agrees and sign the contract, and perhaps both of them are very happy, as you can see in the slide right now, we have found that the buy side is only getting 19% of the value. So in this case, that would be 19 million. Now, the buyer don't know what the real size of the pie is. They don't know that the value was actually 100 million, and they may or may not be happy with the 19%. And again, I repeat, they don't know, they only got 19%. Out of the 35,000 negotiations we studied, we found that the supplier typically is getting more than buy side. They're typically getting 39% of all the value. And just like buy side, they don't know how much they got. They don't know the full size of the pie either. They may be happy or unhappy. But that's not even the most important part. The most important part is back to the 42%. And I'm just repeating myself right now because this message is so important. Imagine again, you're sitting in this negotiation, you're signing the contract, shaking hands, leaving the conference room, and you haven't identified, capitalized, or utilized the concept of necroeconomics. Up to 42% of the value is being left on the table. And what do I mean by necroeconomics? Very simply explained. Necroeconomics is the asymmetric value between your cost and my value, or my cost and your value. Quick example, cost of capital. Money costs money. And let's assume, David, that your cost of capital in your company is 3%, and my cost of capital in my company is 7%. If we negotiate traditionally in a zero-sum game, we are not sharing our cost of capital, and you may be forcing me into a long line of credit of, let's say, 90 days. By doing that, you are saving 3%, but it will cost me 7% because my cost of capital is just higher. Instead, if I got paid upfront or earlier, I would save 7%, but it would cost you 3%. Now, you could be charging me anything up to 7% additional, and I'll be happy to pay that because I'll be saving 7%. So you could get a discount of 6%, I would be saving 1%, and you'll be gaining an additional 3%. Now, this is just a very simple example in terms of payment. It could be delivery time, warranty, installation, risk, you name it. We have more than 350 different variables in a commercial negotiation that easily generate necroeconomics. So there's a lot of potential in doing so. Let me just ask you a quick question. And this is what I call the 1585% study. There was a study that we conducted some years ago together with the Carnegie Institute of Technology. And what we found was that only, and I repeat the word only, 15% of the reason that you are successful in your life is based on your knowledge, your education, and your experience. So I repeat, only 15% of the reason you are successful in life is based on knowledge, education, and experience. On the other hand, we found that 85% of your success in life is based on what we call human engineering. And human engineering basically means people like you, trust you, and want to work with you. So, dumb question. How many of you have spent more than 15, 16, 17 years of your life going to school? Could you raise your hand? That's probably all of you, right? So I'm sorry, February 5th, 2026, I'm sorry to tell you, why did you waste so much of your life? Now, this is a provoking question. At this point, if we were in a live session, I was doing a keynote, I would have people objecting, saying that can't be right. knowledge, education, experience must be way more important than human engineering, because this is what I know. This is the foundation. This is the knowledge, education that I got that is needed to be successful in my life. Well, I never hope we end up in a world where it would be 0-100. So we know nothing about what we're supposed to be knowledgeable about, but we're very good at talking about it. That would obviously be horrible. But let me share a very quick example with all of you. Let's say I'm standing here with a woman. Her name is Maria. Maria has been studying whatever, international tax law at one of the best universities in the world, best faculty, best professors. Maria is very intelligent, very ambitious, and end up top of class. She graduates, obviously, get very good grades, and get out in business life and get a good position in an international tax advisory company. No surprise, that was Maria, right? On the other side here, I have a gentleman. His name is Martin. And Martin have, strangely enough, studied the same as Maria, international tax law. However, Martin over here has been studying at one of the worst universities in the world. It's actually surprising they are accredited at all. And Martin is, how can I put this nicely, slightly lazy, not as intelligent as Maria. So he's not doing that well in class. But despite all of that, believe it or not, he's actually graduating and getting a job in an international tax advisory company. Quick question. Based on my chapter 1 in my story here, who do you think is going to be more successful? Maria, with all that background and history I told you, or Martin? Majority of people at this point will point to Maria and said she's going to be more successful in life. Here comes chapter 2. Most people don't like Maria. A lot of people find her arrogant. A lot of people find that she's not very socially intelligent. She don't connect with people. She talks down to people. She feels that she know it all, and she's not really interested in creating a human relationship. And a lot of people don't trust her either. Martin, on the other hand, is highly socially intelligent. Basically, everybody loves the guy. They embrace him. They really like working with him. So they have a great relationship. Now, Martin knows considerably less than Maria, but what he doesn't know, ChatGPT can tell him. Now, I will, until the end of my career, claim that Martin is going to be more successful in life than Maria. Now, Martin obviously got his 15% in place, and he knows less than Maria. But as I said, what he doesn't know, he can look it up, right? So it's very important to understand that human engineering, especially in today's world, where more people than ever before is coming out with a degree, more people than ever before is getting a high-level education, our ability to negotiate, create trust, and communicate efficiently becomes more important than technical knowledge, because everybody today has that education. You know, the good news is that more people than ever before are graduating college, more people are coming out from university with a great degree. The problem is it doesn't make them unique in any possible way, because there are millions of other people who basically got the same amount of knowledge. So it's all about what we build on top of that to create the relationship. I have to emphasize, I'm not against education. I think it's important. That's what I do. I'm not against knowledge. It's obviously very important, and experience is very important as well. Just remember that human engineering part is really crucial. Let me tell you an embarrassing story from my own life. I was born and raised in Denmark. I've been living in 4 different countries, and now I'm a dual citizen living here in the US. I'm American and a Danish citizen as well. Now, when I was very young, as I said, I was born and raised in Denmark. I got my driver's license and had to buy my first car. Now, I was broke. I had no money whatsoever, but I had one of these stupid ideas. I have lots of stupid ideas in my life, but I had one of these stupid ideas that I didn't want to buy a secondhand car. I couldn't really afford any cars in general, but I would not buy a secondhand car. There was one brand I could afford. I don't know if you guys remember it. That car was in the US as well. It requires a certain age to be able to remember that car. That was a Yugo. Anybody remember the car, the Yugo? That was the only car I could afford buying it brand new. So I bought that car, and my God, that was a mistake. I'm not exaggerating my story. 1 week after I bought that car, the paint job started to bubble. It was simply just bad paint job, right? Another week went by, I couldn't open the left door. It was just stuck somehow. Another week went by, I couldn't roll down the window. Another week went by, the electricity system stopped working. Another week went by, I lost the bumper in the back. It just continued like that. And guys, I'm not exaggerating my story. 6 months after I bought this car, it was lying like pieces to a puzzle out on the street. Back then, there was a factory in the country that doesn't exist anymore either, named Yugoslavia, that had no idea on how to manufacture a car. They were really, really low on technical knowledge and perhaps human engineering as well. Now, fast forward to 2026. When you and I go into a car dealership today, I can promise you, you're not standing in there looking at a brand new car thinking, I wonder if this car is going to fall apart within the next 6 months. Because they're not. Because everybody, whether you buy a German car, a French car, a Spanish car, a British car, Japanese car, Korean car, an American car, they all have the people that are required to build the quality car today. They all have the engineering, the designers, the programmers, whatever you need. So they're all good in the 15%. So what is the reason that you pick one brand compared to another today? Human engineering. It's down to whether you like the design and the brand and the value that explains and the person you meet at the dealership and all of that, because the technical knowledge is covered already. And remember what I'm saying right now, all business is human, right? I'm always laughing when I'm reading Washington Post or New York Times or Financial Times or whatever, and it says company A have gone into an agreement with company B. I apologize for my language, but I'm always thinking, what a load of BS. That never happened. Two companies never made an agreement. Two governments have never made an agreement. It is Maria and Martin that made a deal. And if Maria was replaced by Barbara, perhaps the whole deal would fall apart. So just remember, guys, all business is human. Now, this is a study, not a study I've done, but a study that has been conducted thousands of times around the world. And David, quick question, David. So if you look at the bar to the left, could we all agree, David, that that bar to the left has identical size to the bar named A? Is that right? That's the same height, isn't it? The bar to the left, that's the same height as A.
It doesn't appear that way to me, Keld.
Well, that's surprising because that's the case, David. The bar to the left has the same height as bar A. Now, probably all of you are sitting there thinking, what's he talking about? That's wrong. It looks like it's C, doesn't it? And obviously you're right. The bar to the left has the same height as C. Here comes the study. Imagine, David, you are the guinea pig and I'm the researcher, and you are invited into the laboratory as the guinea pig, and you're the only real guinea pig in the room. There are 19 other people in there, but they are hired actors, and all of them have been instructed to tell you and me that the bar to the left is the same height as bar A. Now you are guinea pig test person number 20. So there are 19 people before you are going to ask this question. Could you please tell me the bar to the left, which of these three bars, A, B, and C, is that identical to in height? And I start with the first one, and the first one says A, the next one says A, the third one says A, and here we go, it goes A all the way down till we come to you. Now, this study that has been repeated numerous times, what do you think happened with you, David? What is that alarming high percentage of people that will say when you are number 20?
Yeah, the conformity bias, right, that we hear about, it sounds like that people want to go along.
Yeah, isn't that scary? We actually know that close to 90% of the guinea pig in this study actually says A. Now, what is funny, you can actually watch this. Some of it has been recorded and you can watch it on YouTube. What is actually interesting is you can see a lot of these people that has been invited in that don't know the 19 other people actors. You can see when the first one says A, number 20 sits there and look around and think, what the heck is going on? Well, you know, he's wrong. And the next one says A, and the next one says A, and the next one says A. And then when we come to number 20, they look confused, but they're saying A because they're thinking, I must be wrong because everybody else said A. I think that's scary and tells us something about human being as well, isn't it? There's another version of this study I find is kind of interesting as well. And that is you, David, are still the guinea pig, but this time there are 19 actors in the room that have been instructed to say not only A, but also B. So I started with the first one. The first one says A, the next one says B, the next one says B, the fourth one says A, and here we go, all the way down to you. Now, at this point, in this version of the study, close to 50% of the people in the study will now be brave enough, like you, David, to say, hang on, it's C. but it requires that other people are disagreeing about the actually outcome. If everybody else agreed that it's A, then we see the majority goes with A as well. Now, I'm raising this topic, guys, because imagine that the way we've been negotiating since 1776 is A. Everybody's been doing it that way, but it's wrong. The right answer is actually C. So my role is really to make everybody aware that we might have perceived negotiation the wrong way. And we're just looking at everybody else doing it the wrong way and thinking, well, that's the way we negotiate, so that must be the right way to do it. But imagine that is actually not the case. So just to back this up a little bit and how important negotiation is, I could spend hours just talking about studies that show the impact of negotiation into society. But one of them is from McKinsey and Company that did this study just last year. And they were asking Fortune 500 CEOs here in the US about how important do you perceive negotiation? And as you can see, which I thought was interesting, 93% of the CEOs of the biggest organizations in the US said, it is so important for us, so we will implement within the next 3 years a chief negotiation officer. I can tell you a lot of organizations already have one today. It may not be named chief negotiation officer, it may have a different title, but that's actually the role. Companies like Google, Amazon, a lot of consultancy companies and other organizations have a chief negotiation officer already. And that's just an individual who is in charge of a department that do nothing but negotiate, whether it's buy or sell side or project or management or merger acquisition or what have you. So they are just a unique expertise in that department. Now, what I found is even more interesting in this case is that 96% of the 93% of the CEOs are actually saying that if we got world-class negotiators in our organization, that would increase earning by at least 5%. Now, let's just say they're wrong. It's not 5%, it's only 4% or 3% or even 2%. If you look at a Fortune 500 organization improving their earnings by 2, 3, 4, 5%, that is an enormous amount of money just by improving the way we negotiate. So there's obviously a lot of potential interest here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important slide in my entire presentation right here. So you're very welcome to take a screenshot of this one, because this is basically the conclusion of our study of 35,000 negotiations, as I mentioned earlier, since 1998. And what this one is showing us is the 4 things we have identified that clearly identify the negotiators who are better than others and organizations that are more successful than others. And I'm going through these 4 items very, very quickly. We could obviously spend much more time on it, but we don't have that today. So what we have learned is that organizations that are way more successful than others have a very clear identified negotiation strategy. Let me ask you a question, all of you. Again, please raise your hand. How many of you have an official negotiation strategy in your organization? Is my mic working? Did you understand the question? The reason I'm teasing right now is because even when working with major organizations and government, I'm always asking the executive level this question: could I please see your official negotiation strategy? And in most of the cases, the executive C-suite level goes, because they don't have one. If I ask them, do you have an HR strategy? They go, oh, yes, absolutely. If I ask if they have a research and development strategy, they say, of course we do. If I ask them about a communication or sales strategy or go-to-market strategy or what have you, they all say, of course we do. So they all know that we need all this bunch of strategies, but neither of them have an official negotiation strategy. So they leave it up to the individual in the organization, go negotiate. And then you just rely on that one's ability to negotiate. And hopefully it's a great negotiator. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And it's actually incredible for me that we arm people with this enormous important task, and we don't really know if they, 1, are qualified, 2, like it, and 3, are very good at what they're doing. So we need a negotiation strategy. Number 2 on this one is trust currency. And that's a word I coined. I obviously just put the word trust and currency together. And the reason I did that was that about 8 years ago, I woke up one morning and I got a weird stomach sensation that I felt the trust has dropped in the Western world. I felt that you, Michael, and I, we had less trust in each other as individuals. I felt that Michael had less trust in the government than ever before. I felt that consumers has less trust in companies, and companies dealing with each other had less trust in each other as well. So I just felt that trust in general declined. Now, my feeling was so strong, so I wanted to write a book about it. But you just can't write a book based on your stomach sensation because that's obviously very subjective, right? So I teamed up with an international organization that went out and studied and asked people, 20,000 people in 15 different countries, about trust level. And they came back to me and said, do you know what, Keld, you're absolutely right. Trust has dropped by, and are you ready? 55% in the Western world in the last 20 years. Some of you might be sitting there thinking, I guess that was interesting. I feel like another cup of coffee. But that's probably the worst news I can share with you today, ladies and gentlemen. And why is that? Listen carefully. If we have a low level of trust in any kind of negotiation, our transaction cost will go up and our profit will decline. On the other hand, if we have a high level of trust, our transaction cost will actually go down and our profit will increase. I'm going to show you in a second the highlights of my study where I did my doctorate, where we studied trust to try and monetize trust, and we were able to do it. So we can actually put a number on trust. So trust is not a nice thing to have, it's a need thing to have because it's a monetized value. Number 3 on the slide, as you can see right here, is understanding the rules of the game. And I'm going to say something I know sounds a little bit weird, but before we start negotiating with the counterpart, we need to negotiate on how to negotiate. And what do I mean by that? Well, look at it this way. Michael, you and I are going to negotiate, but you perceive negotiation like playing tennis, and I perceive negotiation like playing chess. So you're coming into my conference room and I'm sitting moving the pieces on the chessboard around, ready to play a chess, and you're walking into the room with a racket, ready to play tennis. That's going to be an awkward game, isn't it? Because you're playing one game and I'm playing a completely different game. That's how a lot of negotiation begins before we figure out, hey, we're not playing the same game. So what I'm always advising my clients and students is before we start negotiating anything, we have to negotiate how to negotiate. We have to figure out, are we playing tennis, chess, poker, something else? Because we have to play the same game. So I can promise you, we save so much time and energy and resources by figuring out how we're supposed to negotiate before we start negotiating. And the 4th one on the list, we talked about that already. That is the concept of negotiation economics, nego-economics, the potential 42%. So we need to understand those 4 to be successful in the world of commercial negotiation.
Keld, can I just jump in for 1 second because you mentioned this was your most important slide?
Yep.
I just want to say that I think probably for our audience that this slide really resonates as a real overlay of what mediators do every time they're dealing with parties or having a dispute, because there always is this question of what is the strategy? How are you going to approach the negotiation and the conversation as a mediator? So much of what we do is about building trust with both of the parties and recognizing that there's often been a breakdown of trust between both sides. As the mediator, you're often in the middle of 2 parties who have very different ideas of what the rules of the game should be. And one is that, it's combative, and one is trying to be more collaborative. And then the last issue of economics, and this is really, I think, something that probably could really benefit our audience, is mediators are often looking for ways to try and find other value in the context of the negotiation that the parties can talk about. And it can be so hard to find that and explore that, particularly when you have the one side that's sort of distributive and has the old 1776 winner take all approach versus what we refer to as the integrative approach in mediation of trying to make the pie bigger. So I think so much of what you're saying to me is really landing in terms of what we do as mediators and as lawyers in this context. But I think the real challenge is often this nego economics piece. How do you find these elements of value that aren't being discussed?
Mhm. That's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that, David. I agree with everything you said. And just back to economics again, we have very limited time today, but one of the critical things to be successful in economics is obviously trust. If we don't trust each other, I can promise it's impossible to find that value because neither you or me, David, are going to share anything. You're not going to tell me that your cost of capital is 3%, and I'm certainly not going to tell you that my cost of capital is 7%. And if we're not doing that, it's like looking for a black cat in a dark room, right? We have no idea what we're doing. So it really requires trust. Which brings me back to this slide right here. Now, I don't want to dive into all the data because that's kind of boring. If anybody really want to read about it, I'm very happy to share my doctorate. It's boring reading, I got to warn you guys. But if anybody really want to dive into it. Anyway, I really just want to focus on one thing down here, the financial impact of trust. And what we found was that in negotiation where trust is high, they would capitalize basically 34% more value than in negotiation where trust was low. So we were very happy when we were able to quantify and monetize trust, because I actually had that gut feeling for many years that trust is something that generates a value. Let me ask you a quick question. Are we able to capitalize trust? And let me give you a very quick example. David, you have been buying cups like this for years, and you're buying hundreds of thousands or even millions of these cups, and you've been working with a supplier for, let's say, 8 years. You're very happy with that supplier. You like this individual. You trust this individual. Everything has been going according to plan. You are very satisfied with the price, delivery, quality, product, everything. But here's the challenge, David. Suddenly a new supplier pops up on the market. This is the new supplier B. And this new supplier is offering the exact same product as your existing supplier. Same product, same delivery, same logistics, same everything. However, the challenge for you is, David, that the price for this new supplier is 1% cheaper than your existing one. So the new supplier with the same product is offering the same product, same setup, same everything, 1% cheaper than the existing one. But here comes the challenge, David. I don't know if you ever tried that. Have you ever walked into a room and you get this stomach sensation that you don't like one individual in the room? Have you ever tried that, David?
I've been there for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And you get that feeling right now with this new supplier. You can't put your finger on it. You don't know why, but there's something about the individual here. You can't put your finger on it, but you don't really trust him or her. You don't really like him or her. That's just something, but you can't put your finger on it. Quick question, David. Who are you going to continue business with? Your existing one you like and trust that is 1% more expensive than the new one that you don't like and don't trust?
I think chances are at 1%, I'd probably want to stick with the person I have a relationship with, that I trust, that I know is going to be there to help me, that I feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling if there's an issue, and maybe even ask him what accounts for this differential.
Exactly. What is the price difference worth 5%, David?
Yeah, then it starts to get higher because you talk about these tight margin businesses, right?
Exactly. And what is the price difference for 10%, David? When are you switching?
Yeah, somewhere probably somewhere between somewhere in the low single digits, I would say, to mid single digits. But I would
There we
want
go.
to at least explore why. What is going on here that you're no longer competitive?
Exactly. What was it we just did here with David, ladies and gentlemen? We put a price tag on trust, didn't we? Because David is willing to pay 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% more from the supplier he like and trust that got the same product as the new supplier that is actually cheaper, but he doesn't like or trust that individual. Now, in our study, we actually found that, this is a very stupid, simple product, a cup like this, right? But if we had a more advanced, high-tech product, we have actually found that the price difference we accept from somebody we like and trust is above 30%. Isn't that interesting, ladies and gentlemen? So if it's really a complicated service or product, we accept an up to 30% plus price difference simply based on a thing that is called likability and trust. Now, do you know what's interesting? Quite often I work with people, especially in economics, where I try and tell them that trust is a monetary value, and they say, no, it's not. It's an emotion. And then I give them this example, and then they all become very quiet, and we go back into the computer, insert a line in the Excel spreadsheet saying trust, because now we can actually capitalize the value of trust. So I can only repeat what I've been saying a few times already. Trust is not a nice thing to have. It's a neat thing to have because there's a financial impact in having a high level of trust. Let's move on a little bit. If you remember my cartoon showing the zero-sum game, the positional negotiation, where we have the soldiers in the trenches, you remember the trench was square, right? It was confrontational. When we move into partnership, that's a different choice of strategy. We have a round trench suddenly. So when we talk about different strategies, we basically have zero-sum or partnership. Now, in 1998, I looked into partnership that is often perceived as being a collaborative approach. But quite often when I meet organizations and I ask them, what's your approach into negotiation? They say, oh, we are partners with our suppliers and our client. When I dive into the details, sometimes I find that they are actually just in a long-term zero-sum. But they have been behaving in a zero-sum approach for the last 9 years, and then they call it partnership. That's not a real partnership. So in 1998, we developed a concept called smartnership. We could also have named it partnership version 2.0 because it's really just the development of partnership. Now look what happens on this cartoon up here. Now we have the trench that is round, so we have improved communication. but the rifles are now pointing outwards. That means in a partnership, I can make $100 without you paying for it, and you can make $100 without I'm paying for it, because we are working together to try and make 2 + 2 equal more than 4. Quick explanation of the difference between a partnership and a smartnership. In a smartnership, we have actually verbalized trust. We have agreed on trust. We have talked about trust. 1. 2, we have identified variables. A variable is everything we can negotiate that will generate economics. And we have also agreed on how to split that potential value of up to 42% that we want to negotiate. And third, we have negotiated on how to renegotiate before we start negotiating. That's 3 of the headlines that basically quickly explain the difference between zero sum and partnership and smartnership, the 3 strategies that we need. I don't have so much time left, but I want to spend just a few minutes on the use of AI, because a quick second to make an announcement. Just a couple of months ago, I released my brand new book called The Smart Negotiator from Wiley, which is a book all about how you utilize AI in negotiations. And the reason I did that was because we did a study just last year in 2020, no, sorry, 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, what is it? 2024, where we ran a number of studies comparing negotiators not using AI with negotiators using AI. I'm going to share the highlights from that study in a second. And that convinced me that we need to negotiate using AI. Some people are surprised that I actually am a big fan of using AI. But I know one thing, and that is AI won't replace negotiators, but negotiators using AI will. So that means if you are not already now using AI in your negotiations, you are late to the party. You have to get started right away. Let me just introduce very quickly the highlight from our study. So as you can see now in the graphics, we were running 3 different simulations, and we repeated this hundreds and hundreds of times. We had one simulation. This was a global study where we repeated this 430 times. We had one negotiation where it was old school traditional without the use of AI. 2 people negotiating with 2 people without the use of technology, human versus human. Then we had another group where we had one side using AI. In this case, it was ChatGPT, and the counterpart was not using AI. And then we had the third group where both sides were using AI. As you can see, when we talked about time consumption, when it was human versus human, they never managed to reach a deal within the time allocated. They always ran out of time. That's kind of human beings, right? When one side was using AI and the counterpart wasn't, they managed to reach a deal just within time. And when both sides were using AI, they actually managed to do it in due time and even have time left, right? Now, that's not the most important part. Perhaps what is less surprising is we saw a difference in preparation. We saw that human versus human were really not that well prepared. As you can see, that was down about just 60 plus something. And what was actually interesting was that when we had one side using AI, negotiating with a counterpart that was not using AI, preparation was actually worse for both of them because there was an unbalance in information level. Excuse me. And when both sides were using AI, preparation was superior to a negotiation just with human versus human without the use of AI. Not a big surprise. Then here comes the interesting part, value realization. Human versus human left an enormous amount of value on the table. AI versus human beings, and when I say AI, it's actually human beings using AI versus humans not using AI, they captured a bit more value. But look what happened when both sides were using AI. Value realization was almost complete. They really didn't leave much value on the table. But here comes the most surprising and shocking outcome of our study. I did not see that coming. And that was the level of collaboration, openness, transparency, and honesty. Look what happened. Human versus human was kind of okay. When we had AI versus human, that was horrible because they lacked trust completely because there was that unbalance in information. But look what happened when negotiators on both sides of the table were using AI. Collaboration, trust, openness, and honesty went through the roof. I have had so many people coming to me saying afterwards, so are you saying that AI is helping people to be more trusting in each other? And my answer is, I guess so, because that's what our study found. So it's actually interesting to me that AI is helping us be more collaborative. AI is helping us to be more trusting. AI is helping us to generate economics. So this was basically the conclusion and the reason that I wrote my book number 27, specifically on how to embrace AI in negotiation, because you cannot negotiate without the use of AI. Now, very quickly, and let me just wrap up because I would love to spend just a few minutes on Q&A. I'm sure there's a bunch of questions. Very quickly, I'm just naming it ChatGPT. That's my go-to. By the way, I recommend 3 AI systems for negotiation: Perplexity, Gemini, and ChatGPT. They are the 3 best ones to use specifically in negotiation. And you actually have to use all 3. You cannot just use one because they have different strengths and weaknesses. So those are the 3 I usually work with, but I'll just call it ChatGPT up here. So again, we don't have time to dive in, but where can you use AI in your negotiation process? Well, in preparation, obviously creating a strategy during negotiation, understanding emotions from the counterpart. It's funny. I often have people coming to me saying, but AI can't do emotions. Wrong. It's very good at it. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a bit of a temper. So do my wife. And a couple of months ago, we had an argument about something. That happens a lot. So don't worry, we're not close to a divorce, but we just have a discussion about stuff, right? And I was actually thinking, I want to try something new. So I went into my home office and then I wrote the emotion and the reaction from my wife into ChatGPT and asked, how should I deal with that? And ChatGPT analyzed it, came out with a good explanation. I tried it out on my wife. It worked perfectly. We got settled something very quickly. So I can tell you that AI is very good at being more objective and doesn't have the amount of biases that you as a human being might have. So it can actually solve emotional issues as well. I just saw a study the other day that #1 use of AI in the US is actually self-therapy. So people are obviously replacing the psychologist with AI. You can use it for simulation. Please, from now on, don't go into any important negotiation without running a simulation in AI. Finding your next best alternative, some of you might know that as BATNA. In communication, I'm sure you all use it for communication already, or to review an existing deal. Let me just wrap up. Please take a photo of this QR code. I brought you a bunch of free cheat sheets how to use AI in your negotiation. So use that. You can just download all the information for free. If you do feel inclined to it, the book is obviously for sale everywhere where you buy a book, but you can get a lot of the cheat sheet just by scanning this one up here. It's very useful and it just helps you a shortcut into how you want to negotiate. So take a photo of that. And I think we have about 4 minutes left, David, for any questions or comments we might have.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for a wonderful presentation. We can open it up to anyone who has any questions, or maybe it have been a couple coming through the chat, but does anybody want to chime in and ask anything? Otherwise, I certainly have my questions. Somebody asked a question about what is the role of empathy in building trust and in collaborative negotiations? How do you, as a mediator, obviously something that is an important aspect of what we do is being able to empathize, validate the feelings of parties, trying to help them work through issues. We're not therapists, right? But it's an important aspect of helping people get past these disputes that have often been very traumatic in their lives. How do you think about that in the context of a commercial negotiation, which fundamentally they are as well?
That's a wonderful question. I'm standing on the shoulders of important people, and one of the people that I admire in this industry is Dr. Dan Shapiro, who's the head of the negotiation program at Harvard University. And Dr. Shapiro has developed a theory that we are tribal. That's nothing new, but we're more tribal than ever before. So that means that, David, if you and I agree on something, we have a tendency today, partly because of algorithms, to not even want to discuss that disagreement with somebody who disagree with us. We have a tendency, you and I, just to be tribal and thinking, what an idiot, because he or she doesn't see the world as we see it. So we're not even interested in having a dialogue with somebody else. That's a tribal effect. So that's basically a lack of empathy. We actually, according to Dr. Shapiro studies, worse at empathy today than ever before. We are worse at engaging and discussing with somebody that we disagree with. I think disagreement is healthy. I think a lot of value comes out of disagreement if we actually have a dialogue. And I think we see that in human relationships, and we see it in the political landscape around the world, not only the US, that one side have a hard time talking to the counterpart. They just see them as complete ignorant and idiots, and it doesn't matter what side you're on, and you don't want to talk to people. And empathy here is really the key, isn't it? Let me give you a quick example, David. I don't know, have you ever been traveling in Asia?
Yes.
Right. The reason I'm asking, David, you might agree with me. If you go to Asia and check into a 5-star hotel, they know something about hospitality that we really haven't figured out in the Western world. Would you agree with me on that? You know,
That's
the service level is just amazing. Let's say you checked into the Oriental in Bangkok, considered one of the better hotels in the world. And you check in, you go to a room, but you're unhappy with your room. So you go back to reception to complain. Now, when you come back to reception to complain, how do you think they're going to respond at the reception? Are they going to say, David, shut up. Do you know where you are? You're at the Oriental, one of the best hotels in the world. If you're unhappy with your room, you can just check out and go to somewhere else. You know, they're not going to say that. Are they going to tell you, you are absolutely right. You got the worst room in the entire hotel? No, they're not going to say that. Listen to what they're going to say. They're going to say, David, we understand you feel there's a problem. Let me see if I can help you deal with the problem you feel you got. Did you get that? I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just showing empathy. I understand you feel there's a problem. I may agree or disagree. That's not important. What is important here is I understand you feel there's a problem. And so many negotiators today forget this simple tool in a negotiation. They go straight into argumentation, which is a waste of time. That's one step forward, three steps backwards. We have to show empathy, right? We have to understand, even if we disagree, that the counterpart believes there's a problem. So I love the great question. Thank you so much. Empathy is really key for so much. It's really the ingredients why we succeed and generate not only trust, but also the head of the negotiation program at Harvard University.
I mean, I think that's a great point and place to leave it today, because again, I think for our audience, that must really resonate in terms of what we do as mediators, how we build trust and how we deal with these parties and help them, build bridges to collaborate and find solutions. So, so thank you, Dr. Keld Jensen, for a really fantastic performance. So much great, or I should say presentation, and so much great science behind the theory of negotiation as well. We really appreciate your support of the organization and the program. The food bank that you've designated, Feeding America, is in the food bank, and so or in the chat. So we encourage everyone to donate. Let us know about those donations. And again, thank you very much for being with us today. And with that, we are concluded.
Thank you for having me.